Deputy Brophy.
Thank you, Colm Brophy. I want to raise this topic because I think it is one of the areas that's going to have the most impact on people living in Dublin in the coming years, the coming decades. There's two aspects to it. I want to talk on it on the local and I want to talk on it on the general. So I'm going to start off, if you'll bear with me for a second, Minister, and just specifically on the local and talk about my local area, my constituency, Dublin South West, and in particular Temple Ogue. As some people may be aware, and it was mentioned in the House already this week, there have been public meetings in the constituency. There have been hundreds and hundreds of people who've attended them. And these people live in the area. They live on the roads affected and they live on the surrounding roads. And their principal argument all the time in relation to what the NTA is doing and what Bus Connects is doing is that they are addressing the issue, and as they should, of people who commute through the area. But are the NTA taking account of the communities that live in the area through which the commuting takes place? I am in favour of public transport. I am in favour of an enhanced bus service. I am in favour of enhanced cycle lanes. I am in favour of allowing for the development of our city for environmental reasons as well as good commuting reasons that facilitates taking people out of their car and providing them with proper public transport. But what I'm not in favour of is I am not in favour of a system, which I believe is what Bus Connects is at the moment, that basically has no regard on the impact on existing communities through which it goes. Temple Ogue Village, the inward bound lane closed at Terranure, so as you will not be able to drive into the city centre, not just at peak times, 24/7, because there's a real necessity at 3 AM in the morning to have it there. 24/7, closed, will not be able to drive into the city. Reducing the parking by a very substantial amount in the village. No consultation with local businesses. Local businesses that exist on the basis of people being able to stop by, park up for a few minutes, go into a shop and buy a local product from a local person running a local business. Those businesses won't survive, and plonking some big car park down the back of the village won't enable them to survive either. They need to have access to immediate local parking. A local road, now it may be a main road to some people, but it's a local road to the people who live on it, which is the road through Temple Ogue Village, is proposed to have what amounts to a hyperlane. 2 car lanes, 2 bus lanes, 2 cycle lanes running through the village. How people are supposed to cross from one side of the village to the other when you have that type of structure. Currently at the moment there's 1 lane in either direction and there's a cycle lane which interacts with the footpath. Of course, the other joke about this is that they say it's necessity because, Minister, the proposal says we need these full continuous lanes, these super hyperlanes. But of course we get to the middle of Temple Ogue Village, and because everybody recognises the insanity of what's being proposed, the lane just stops, vanishes without trace, and we go back to a regular road, which the cyclists have to come off their cycle lane, the bus has to come off its bus lane, and they all get to a point in the middle of the road where they can't go on the cycle lane or the bus lane anymore. I mean, sure, if that in itself doesn't undermine the logic of the whole thing, I don't know what does. But I want to come back to the general principle, because I think the NTA need to look again at this and how they're doing their public consultation. And this is where we get to the generality of it for all of Dublin. We need to be honest and upright with people. We need to say, and the NTA needs to say, that it's either the needs of the commuter outweigh the needs of the community, or there is a balance between them. And the feeling is overwhelmingly in the communities through which Bus Connects plans to plough through, that they will be the sacrificed so as that we have an enhanced bus service in the city. And I would ask you to reconsider that, because I believe it's possible to devise a system that is fair to both.
Thank you, Colm Brophy, and thank you, Deputy, for raising this very important question. And I sympathise with a large amount of what you say, but I think that the remedy is within our hands. At the outset, let me say 2 things, which I think all sides of this House can agree on. And I think the Deputy agrees as well, and he said it. We need to transform public transport in Dublin, and we need to consult with communities as we embark upon that transformation. And I understand the clash which you portrayed between communities and commuters. And I don't accept it, but I can understand what you're saying, that there is a conflict between them and their particular interests at certain hours of the day. I sincerely hope these aren't the only 2 points of agreement today, but if they are to be, at least they are fundamental to our discussion. Bus Connects is designed to transform our bus system and our cycling network, which the Deputy referred to. It will radically increase the amount of bus services available. It will radically improve the journey times for passengers on those services, and it will deliver around 200 kilometres of largely segregated cycling tracks and lanes. Bus Connects will transform the lives of Dubliners and transform the city itself. And that transformation will be for the better. And that's the ambition of this project. And that ambition forms an integral part of Project Ireland 2040. And as I said at the outset, everyone in this House knows we need to transform public transport. If we're going to make Dublin the type of sustainable, livable city we all want it to be, then better public transport and better cycling and walking infrastructure need to be at the heart of that Dublin. But as I've said in the House just last week on another matter, this type of major transformative project will always cause impacts. The ambition, indeed the stated intention, is that these impacts will ultimately be positive, but along the way there will be temporary disruptions and inconveniences. That's why we need to engage with communities and citizens throughout the process, to hear their views and listen to their concerns. And that's exactly what the NTA has been doing all along as it develops Bus Connects. It first consulted with citizens on these proposals way back in 2015 as it drafted the transport strategy for the Greater Dublin area. It's that strategy which first set out the ambition to overhaul our bus network and ensure more Dubliners have greater access to better bus services than ever before. And since the launch of Bus Connects itself, the NTA has engaged in an extensive consultation process with citizens and community groups across the city. I know there are some who allege this consultation hasn't been sufficient, but it has been a huge one, and in terms of its scale, in terms of its reach, and in terms of the depth of engagement. There has been a wealth of information published online and in the press for each and every one of these 16 corridors, as well as a huge amount of detail provided last summer in relation to the proposed new network as it was first published. But even more importantly, from my perspective, there's been active and sustained personal engagement with communities and citizens across the city to explain the proposals, but also, of course, to listen to people's views. The NTA held local information sessions during each consultation period for each of the corridors, including the ones which the Deputy referred to. In addition, local community forums have been established or will be established for each of the corridors also, which seek to bring together community groups to discuss issues of common interest. And on top of all that, the NTA has written to each and every individual property owner who might be personally impacted by the proposals and has offered a one-to-one meeting to explain in person and in detail the implications, the timelines and the processes involved. So let me be clear. The NTA is engaging with local communities as it embarks upon this transformation. And let me reiterate, this is the start of a process. That's why the NTA is seeking people's views. I want to see a bus system that connects more Dubliners to more job opportunities, more social and leisure activities. I want to see a bus system that saves Dubliners up to 40 to 50% of their time on their bus journey. Time saved that they can spend doing what they want to do and not sitting in traffic.
Deputy Brophy.
Thank you, Minister, for the reply. As you were able to agree with me in some aspects of the reply, I'm able to agree with you. But the devil's in the detail. And I specifically want to just put one or two of those details into play. First of all, the NTA is engaged in a consultation process, but it hasn't as of yet contacted everybody, I believe. They were told at a public meeting on Monday night by one owner that they'd received no communication from them. The very first interaction they got with them was at a public meeting about a CPO of land which they have. I think that's a disgrace. I would say to you, I think the NTA are making an effort on one level, but on another level, I'd just put this thought to you, Minister. They started a consultation on a route process. They haven't finished. They've moved on to the second phase of a consultation, about another part of the plan. There are a lot of people who maybe, you might think them cynical, but maybe they might just be a little bit worried about an organisation that hasn't even replied to the Phase 1 consultation about the routes, but is ploughing on with Phase 2. That maybe what's actually happening is there's a predetermined outcome and we're just being talked to. Are we being listened to? What we will have to see is when the NTA comes back is how much they've really listened. Because if they really listen, then some of what is being proposed cannot go ahead. On the very specifics, I'd say this to you. If you close the routes the roads as currently proposed, 24/7 in the way that the NTA are doing it, you will have traffic gridlock in Dublin City. You can't reverse that overnight. If you destroy the communities by building these hyperlanes down roads that don't need to be built, you can't reverse that when it's done overnight. So we have big decisions to make, and we need, I believe, to have a much greater consultation process and much more involvement from communities. Otherwise, what we will have is we will have a partial transport solution which neither meets the needs of the commuter, but certainly will have destroyed the communities through which it goes. The NTA need to just slow up and think. Thank you.
Minister, to conclude, please.
Yeah, I understand the frustration of the Deputy, because there are a large number of people who are going to be inconvenienced by what happens. And it is a matter, to some extent, of the greater good, because of the absolutely chronic situation in the traffic situation in Dublin, and the need to improve public transport and to make transport journeys faster and more efficient. I'm surprised that you can mention a case where the NTA hasn't informed someone, because my understanding is very specifically that all property owners who are potentially impacted by the new bus lanes are notified by registered letter by the NTA immediately before the public launch. And that that explains the proposal, an overview map of their road and the potential impact on their property, and offers one-to-one meetings with the NTA to discuss the specific implications for them. Now, if you have a specific case, I'm delighted, give it to me, and I'd be delighted to refer it to the NTA and ask them. But I don't think there's any kind of deliberate decision or effort to bypass people in any way. There may be a problem there, or there may be misunderstanding, or the registered letter may just not have been served properly. But there is a commitment by them, which I think is a firm and genuine commitment, that to make contact with anybody affected. My understanding also is that the take-up on the one-to-one meetings is relatively low, disappointingly low. I think it's about 12%, which is small. But they are open to that. And you have to, I think, acknowledge that certainly on the Bus Connects, on the routes, on the network, where they had a consultation, they had a very wide consultation last summer. They received 30,000 submissions from the Dublin area, which they are taking in and looking at and examining. They're going to come back with, and you say the proof of the pudding will be in the eating. I agree with you. They're going to come back now, in the next few months, with a new plan for a further public consultation, and then we'll see where we go from there and what changes have been made. But I think it's probably unfair to say, and certainly premature, to say that they're not serious about public consultation. They're doing a series of them, and we'll see what the results are going to be.
Thank you very much. The fourth item.